Gauging what games are the most impactful on the Nintendo Switch was one of the hardest top 25 lists I've ever done. How do you determine what games have the most impact? Is it sales, review scores, fan excitement, marketing campaigns, or a traditional system seller? These all are part of what makes a game have the most impact in my opinion. And in this video, I'll be breaking down what games had the most impact on the perception, sales, and overall success of the Nintendo Switch from a financial and gamer perspective. Keep in mind, some games can have more impact despite selling less, especially if that game resurrects a franchise, gets more people to talk positively about the system, or adds legitimacy to the system as a popular franchise. There are a lot of factors that add to what makes a game impactful. Don't take this as a be-all, end-all list, but more so just going over the games that really helped shape the Switch to what it is at this point. Let me know what your most impactful games are for the Nintendo Switch in the comment section below. Starting off with number 25 is Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and this might have not been the biggest sales impact on the Nintendo Switch, selling right around 2.5 million or so from the last numbers that we do know. But what it did for the Nintendo Switch back in 2017 as a big JRPG was absolutely needed to balance out all of the other typical Nintendo titles that already were on the system from the launch year. We needed something a bit different because a lot of Japanese developers were not supporting the Nintendo Switch with their big JRPGs right there in 2017. Monolith Soft provided a massive JRPG that got new people into the Switch and provided that experience that people were looking for to say, okay, now I'm gonna go out there and buy the Nintendo Switch. I've got this game, and I can play this that's like 100 hours. So if I finish up the other games, I'll have something else to play. So many new fans hopped into the Nintendo Switch. People that were into maybe Persona or into other JRPGs from other systems hopped into the Nintendo Switch ecosystem when Xenoblade Chronicles 2 came out, and its lasting impact all the way up until the point to where Pyra and Mithra made it into Super Smash Bros. So that tells you right there that this game had a lasting impact, and it had a very good impact overall, because it's not easy getting into a Super Smash Bros. Game, especially if it's from Xenoblade, not one of Nintendo's biggest franchises out there. So if you look at it overall, at the time that it released and what it did, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was absolutely one of the most impactful games for the Nintendo Switch, and that's why it's number 25 on my list. Number 24, Fortnite, and it's definitely debatable that this game could be way higher up on my list. The only problem is that we don't have all the access to exactly how well and how it's doing specifically on the Nintendo Switch. Now, when it came out in 2018, it was major, and that's why it made my list overall. But the Switch version is so gimped compared to the other versions of the game, it's exactly hard to find where or how well this did for the Nintendo Switch in order to impact it like it impacted maybe other platforms that it was on, where you get better frame rates, better connections, better everything for the most part. So while Fortnite was massive and it was definitely good, it helped the Nintendo Switch get some of those people over to where you can play Fortnite anywhere that you want. This was before the Steam Decks. This is before a lot of other places where you can play portable games on the go. Switch was one of the first to do it when it comes to Fortnite, if not the first outside of mobile with the dedicated gaming device. So this was huge, and it had a big impact on the Nintendo Switch. Now, of course, it's waned off and Fortnite is going off into all different types of directions, but you can't deny what it did for the system, having it on there, that announcement, people getting excited to play portable Fortnite anywhere, and that's why it makes it the number 24 on my list. Coming in at number 23, Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. This is a very interesting game because a lot of people felt that this game wouldn't really do much. They felt that, oh, it's kind of just more of their take of a mobile game on console, which of course, Let's Go, they were trying to do a little bit of cross promotion when it comes to Pokemon Go. So it makes complete sense that the Pokemon company would want this type of game to be made, and it's a remake of the original Red and Blue with some tweaks and changes changes. Now, this is one of the best looking Pokemon games on the platform, but it also became a very good seller, and for many years was actually in the top 10 of best selling titles on the Nintendo Switch. So it was a game that helped bring in a lot of new people to the ecosystem. You did get people who were Pokemon Go fans that decided to pick up a Nintendo Switch to play Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee with their children or by themselves, and it helped boost the system sales up. It had a huge impact on the Nintendo Switch and bringing in more people when it comes down to it. And it had a huge impact overall on the Pokemon Company when it comes to revenues and profits, which then was of course invested back into the platform, more marketing, more things to elevate the system itself. So Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, people forget about these games because of other Pokemon games that we're going to talk about, but it was absolutely one of the most impactful titles on the Nintendo Switch, and something that people don't remember too often. Sometimes people bring it up, but yeah, it was a big impactful title, and it made a lot of headway. It had a lot of headlines when it was being released. It was a bit controversial, just like all Pokemon titles on the Nintendo Switch, but it had its impact, and sales-wise, it was huge for them, 10 million plus units. So Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee makes the number 23 on my list. Coming in at number 22, Splatoon 3, and Splatoon 3's impact is incredibly interesting because while, yes, it maybe wasn't as impactful as another game in the franchise that we're going to talk about, considering when that game released and what the Switch needed compared to when Splatoon 3 released in 2022, I still feel that if you can launch this game when it comes down to when you have another title on there, and Splatoon 3 did 11, 12 million units, it's right around there, that is incredibly good when it comes down to it, and it solidifies itself as a super franchise to where now you have back-to-back titles that have sold 10, 11 million units plus. That is almost unheard of for many games. Sometimes you see a dramatic drop-off with the next game coming, but that's not the case with Splatoon 3. It's sold really well, continues to sell decently over the course of the couple years now that it's going out. It's going on its 2-year anniversary here, and Splatoon 3 also brought a lot of things to the community when it comes to the competitive play and simply people still just picking up the Nintendo Switch. Remember, Nintendo Switch has been on its last legs for a couple years now, and Splatoon came out at a time to when the Nintendo Switch needed that boost in sales, and it got it. It needed more games to play in 2022. They were still a bit off from The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, and Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and some of those games, so they needed some titles. And just like Xenoblade Chronicles 3, when that came out in 2022, it was impactful in its own right. So Splatoon 3 absolutely was a game that definitely helped out, got Nintendo to 2023 in order to drop the bigger games. Now at this point, Nintendo considers Splatoon a mega franchise, one of the top 4, top 5 franchises out there for Nintendo in their corporate meetings and in some of their packaging and things that they do when it comes to Nintendo. Splatoon inklings are there with the big dogs, with Mario and Zelda. So yeah, absolutely makes sense when it comes to Splatoon 3 and its impact and what it did, and that's why it's number 22 on my list. Coming in at number 21, Super Mario Party. And Super Mario Party is a very cool game to analyze and look at because it got something weird that Nintendo usually doesn't do with games when it comes down to adding the ability to do more online features and different things. Now, we've seen it in some of the games before. We've seen it with ports and stuff brought over, but not after a game already releases and then like years later they add and evolve it, maybe because of how well it was selling. Super Mario Party is one of those unsung heroes, at least to Nintendo's corporate, for sales, because when things weren't going so good or if there's a little bit of dip, all of a sudden you see Super Mario Party just selling and selling and selling. And if you look at the sales, it sold an incredible amount of units, which in turn sells systems. Overall, people go out there and pick up a Nintendo Switch, or they were picking up a Nintendo Switch for Super Mario Party, and it was another one of those games that would just be like, okay, I'll pick that up to play with the family. They did feel like they needed to actually expand it and improve the online play. Did certain things that no other Mario Party has ever done, sales-wise and also retention, people playing the game, longest amount of time that it's been in the top sellers, and the fact that it's in the top 10 for Nintendo is just crazy and super impactful overall to the system and just what it did. Obviously, Super Mario Party is not the best Mario Party game out there. I think Mario Party Superstars is better, but you cannot deny the impact that it had when it came out back in 2018, what it did for people actually picking up the system, and what many felt was a down year for Nintendo in 2018. Super Mario Party picked up the slack until they got to stuff like Super Smash Bros. That came out in December. So Super Mario Party makes it to number 21 on my list. I want to say thank you so much for watching this video, but if you do enjoy it, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get my Nintendo Switch and RPG videos first. Now let's go ahead and jump right back into the list at number 20, and we've got Fire Emblem Three Houses. Now this game, just like Xenoblade Chronicles 2, obviously does not have the sales forte and the huge clout of some of the other games that we've talked about. But the reason why Fire Emblem Three Houses is so important is that a lot of these other games, there are already other shooters or party games or RPGs or other things on the system. When Fire Emblem Three Houses launched, there was not a lot of major strategy RPGs from Nintendo. It filled a void that got so many people in to pick up the game. Fire Emblem games do great, but Fire Emblem Three Houses was on the next level when it comes to people buying the game, supporting it, the premium sales of it, the DLC, and it provided a huge strategy RPG serious experience that a lot of gamers were looking for. It was great in Japan as well. It helped facilitate more people picking up that system. And one thing that you have to realize that obviously Nintendo has a lot of worldwide sellers and games that do great worldwide, but this game was big in Japan and helped bring in so many people to maybe try out the Nintendo Switch. Like I said, guys who try out Persona, people that play other types of games, a lot of them came over and bought the Nintendo Switch for this type of game. It's not all just about the major franchises that sell 10 million plus. You have to have some of those other different types of hardcore games that are going to facilitate people picking up the system when you don't have your biggest games out, and Fire Emblem was that over the summer when it dropped, and it was huge. There was a huge campaign for it. It's already a major franchise, at least in Nintendo's eyes, but it became something even bigger to them with these sales overall. It also provided Intelligent Systems with a flush of cash because of how well the game did. So you know Intelligent Systems is going to continue, and this franchise can continue. So that's important as well, because remember, there was a sales scare before Fire Emblem Awakening, and yes, that was long in the rearview mirror at that point, but you still don't want to see a regression like we do see sometimes with the console transitions or big HD games. So I feel that Fire Emblem Three Houses was incredibly impactful in terms of the type of game that it was, what the Switch needed at the time, a summer title when people have more time to play games, and getting in different types of people that like the big JRPGs, that like strategy RPGs, to pick up the Nintendo Switch. Because remember, it's only 2 years into the system's life. You still have to prove yourself over and over, and you can't just have Mario and Zelda and Smash and the same games over to do that. You have to provide super high quality other types of games, and Fire Emblem Three Houses did that for many gamers, and that's why it made it to number 20 on my list. Next up at number 19 is Persona 5 Royal. And Persona 5 Royal, once again, might not be the biggest system seller or biggest seller out of this list, but here's why I think Persona 5 Royal is so important. If you look at the exclusivity that Sony always had with Persona, obviously when they broke that and they said, hey, it's coming over to other platforms, they got a Game Pass deal when it comes to Microsoft. So really what they're looking at here when it comes to Atlas is that they're looking at the sales of this game when it's on the Nintendo Switch. PlayStation already got millions of sales. Whatever they get from re-releasing Persona 5 again is just extra on top. It's just the cherry on top of the cake. But they're really looking at if the Nintendo Switch fans that have been complaining and port begging for Persona 5, will you put your money where your mouth is and support this game? And thankfully, Nintendo fans did, because I think truly this was the true, okay, we're going to stop with these fake exclusivity things that we have with Sony, and we're going to start creating on the Nintendo Switch. It is a super viable platform to release the games on, but for the future. And I think impactful can not just be the generation that you're on right then and there, but also what you do in the future. The sales of Persona 5 Royal were really good on the Nintendo Switch. It charted in the MPD. People are buying the game physical. It's still doing well. I actually have a few sources that tell me it's still selling quite decently on the Nintendo Switch digitally in addition to physical copies, because you get that whole experience on a cartridge anywhere that you want as a turn-based RPG. So Persona 5 Royal was instrumental into shaking the difference in terms of what Atlus is going to do and the support that's coming in different games that will be coming to Nintendo platforms, but also having that type of RPG when so many people were saying that it's PlayStation exclusive, there's no way that it can come to any other platform, the Switch isn't powerful enough to have that size of game, all this other stuff that was unsubstantiated. Persona 5 Royal released on Switch and broke all of that. So it's an incredibly impactful game from just an overall standpoint, from a business standpoint, and from the relationship from Atlus and Nintendo and what's going to happen in the future. When we get Persona games in the future on Nintendo Switch 2 hardware, you can thank Persona 5 Royal as being one of the games that sold really good, so it encourages them to continue with that support. So that's why Persona 5 Royal makes the number 19 on my list. Coming in at number 18, Luigi's Mansion 3. And while Luigi's Mansion 3 is a game that is kind of hard to gauge because we don't exactly know in terms of system sales to the title coming out and the boost and everything, because at that time, Nintendo Switch was already doing really good and games were selling just based off the system sales that they already had, like Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Splatoon 2 in addition to Super Mario Odyssey. But Luigi's Mansion came out and was incredible. It was really good and it was a slow burn. It's consistently sold well over the 4 years or so plus that it's been out, and it's a game that has helped legitimize when it comes to Luigi's Adventure. So many people never played Luigi's Mansion. It doubled plus its sales over the Nintendo 3DS version of the game, which will be on the Nintendo Switch in June. So many new people picked up the Nintendo Switch, picked up Luigi's Mansion, and said, okay, I'm gonna try this game out. If you look at the graphics of Luigi's Mansion 3, it showed that if you are crafty with what you do, you can do some incredible things on the system. This is by far one of Nintendo's best looking games that they've put out, and one of the best looking games on the platform. I think that Luigi's Mansion 3 also solidified that they will buy Next Level Games, because Next Level was about to be a free agent on the market. They were looking to sell, and Nintendo said, no way, we're not going to get rid of you guys. We're going to hold on to that. That is incredibly impactful for Nintendo to say, no, we're not letting you guys go. We're going to buy you. Because remember, we saw what happened with Rare, right? And I think some people might feel that Nintendo could do that again, but they didn't let go of Next Level Games. They held on to them. So that means they had a massive impact on what's important to Nintendo with their games, with profitability, with Luigi's Mansion in particular. So that shoots it all the way up to number 18 on my list. Next up at number 17 is Kirby and the Forgotten Land. And why is Kirby and the Forgotten Land here? Well, to me, it's not, once again, just about the sales numbers. That is great if you can have high sales, but the impact of this game is very different. This was the first true, real 3D HD Kirby game that we got, and this game really exploded for a franchise best in sales, and it helped when it comes to HAL and the relationship that they have with Nintendo that's going to do so many more things in the future. No other Kirby game has done this well, and we haven't seen Kirby in the 3D phase when it comes down to it do what they did here with the gameplay and everything. So that type, in 2022 when this game released, that type of game really helped, once again, in the more advanced age of the Nintendo Switch, push the system in Japan, in the US, and Europe worldwide. It's not just about how much you did, it's about when you launched and what you did since then. And Kirby and the Forgotten Land has been incredible in that regard. So I do feel that that game helped boost the Nintendo Switch when it needed it. It provided another big seller when people didn't think Kirby was really like that, especially after the few Kirby games that we had on the Switch. None of them even came close to this, but they reinvented the series here and they created something that's going to be huge heading into the Nintendo Switch 2 and seeing what they do with even better hardware. Kirby and the Forgotten Land was massive for the Switch and massive for the franchise itself, and once again providing variety for gamers out there to play something that's not just Mario or Zelda or Pokemon or the typical ones. We finally got an incredible 3D adventure Kirby game that truly lived up to expectations, if not surpassed them for many people, which then boosted the profile of the system. Another multi-million selling franchise on the system that's been around for decades at this point, but has never done this good. Kirby and the Forgotten Land makes the number 17 on my list. Next up at number 16 is Ring Fit Adventure, the casual superstar for the Nintendo Switch, the Wii audience that it kind of brought back in. People don't talk about this game, but this absolutely brought some of that Wii audience that I know Nintendo really wants to bring back in. It got them to pick up the Nintendo Switch, and it also had a better hook and gimmick. Now, I have my bachelor's degree in kinesiology, which is the study of human movement, and I can guarantee you that the resistance little ring thing that they had in doing the squats and the different like raises up over your head and all those different stuff, holding it out, that is absolutely more beneficial when it comes to what Ring Fit did than the Wii Fit games. Now, Wii Fit was cool for what it was, but you're essentially just balancing and doing all that, which is great. Balance is good, but Ring Fit was much better overall for workouts and exercise, and I think that's how they were able to bring back in some of that audience, which helped, once again, boost the profile of the Nintendo Switch when it needed it, when it released. Ring Fit Adventure is a game that brought in those people and had a big impact in a different sector for Nintendo to market to some of the people that aren't just going to go out there and rush to get Zelda and rush to get some of these games. Now, don't get me wrong, there are people like myself who do love the core games that also played this and thought it was great, but I think that Ring Fit Adventure did a great job of being able to, one, be an awesome game, the developers did great with it, but also just bring in more new people to the Nintendo Switch. So Ring Fit Adventure makes the number 16 on my list. And I am going to have a bonus game here because I forgot to put it on here, but it's hard to see where it actually slots, and that's maybe the reason why I forgot, and that's Nintendo Switch Sports. Now, I know this game has a huge hate following online because people compare it to Wii Sports Resort, people compare it to Wii Sports and the impact that that game had, which obviously Wii Sports had one of the greatest impacts of all time. But overall, this game has sold 13 million units and has once again brought in a lot of new people, different types of consumers, and it's one of the reasons why when you look at the Japanese sales, this game continues to do well and Switch continues to sell in Japan. It's Nintendo Switch Sports being one of the top sellers in that country for years now, in the top 20 and almost never leaving. So a lot of casual consumers, a lot of kids playing their first couple titles, a lot of people that you wouldn't expect to buy a Nintendo Switch have definitely picked up Nintendo Switch Sports and the system. So that to me is very impactful. Despite it not living up to whatever standards that people would have wanted to see, it's still a game that people find very fun to play with their family, has done incredibly well and brings in more people and continues to sell incredibly well, even after a number of years of being on the market. So for my bonus pick here, we got to put in Nintendo Switch Sports. Now, getting back to the numbers here, guys, number 15, Dragon Quest XI-S Echoes of an Elusive Age definitive version. Now, this game, just like many other titles on this list, yes, it doesn't have the highest profile sales, and I get that. And it's a multi-platform game. Most of the big impactful games on the Nintendo Switch are going to be first-party exclusive games. That's just how it is for Nintendo platforms. But there are a number of third-party games that have had impact, like Doom and Skyrim and The Witcher, and those are all great, and maybe in the top 50 they'd be in that list. But to me, Dragon Quest was easily one of the most impactful games, and I'll tell you why. When you look at Dragon Quest XI-S when it released, that is huge in Japan. And once again, Japan still has a massive chunk of the install base when it comes to biggest markets in the world. For them to get Dragon Quest XI-S 2 years after the release and for it to sell 1 million plus simply in Japan alone for that game, despite it being on other platforms, that showed you right there the flip or the turn when it comes to Japan. They were waiting for Dragon Quest to come to Nintendo Switch. They didn't just say, oh, I'm just gonna buy it on PS4 and 3DS and that's it. Some people were waiting for that. Actually, a lot of people were waiting for that. And that also helped spur the popularity of Dragon Quest overall, taking that experience anywhere that you want. Because remember, the 3DS game didn't release on the Nintendo Switch in the Western territories, just in Japan. But having Dragon Quest and the quality of that game and what they did with the orchestrated soundtrack, with all of the quality of life updates, with everything, it made a good game way better and released it exclusively at the time being on the platform. That right there was the true switch or igniter to me when it comes to, okay, Japan is not going back to any other system. It is going to be Nintendo dominated from this point out, because Dragon Quest just did gangbusters on there, and Switch really got a nice boost from that. And then of course that trickled down to the US, and that trickled to other areas where Dragon Quest XI became popular, became the best-selling Dragon Quest game ever in many different regions outside of Japan. So to me, that is a huge impact, a worldwide impact on not only just the hardware with the Switch, but just what people are playing and checking out. So many gamers, their first Dragon Quest ever was Dragon Quest XI-S on the Nintendo Switch. So that's why it's number 15 on my list. Coming in at number 14 is Metroid Dread. And to me, this game is super impactful and more to some of these other big games that have sold more, is because once again, variety. People are looking for more than just the typical games that we get. And Metroid, when it comes to console titles, has been done, has been dead for a long time. We hadn't gotten anything. Wii U saw no new console Metroid game, just virtual console stuff. 3DS did get Samus Returns, it did get the Metroid Prime Federation Force, but Nintendo home consoles got nothing. We've had nothing since Metroid Other M. So people were starved at this point. And not only were people starved, Nintendo knew that they can kind of take this game and get it to be better than any other thing in terms of sales and impact, because what did they do? Launch it with the Nintendo Switch OLED in 2021, which helped provide a big profile boost and naturally looked like a special edition because of the white that Samus was wearing when they showed off Dread, and also the white Joy-Cons and the Switch OLED. So many people picked up a Nintendo Switch OLED and Metroid Dread, and they kind of paired it together to where Nintendo even announced the sales of Metroid Dread. Doug Bowser announced the sales, saying, hey, we sold 800,000 units plus in that first month when it comes to, which is a franchise record, and they sold over 3 million units plus at this point. That is impactful because it's a different game, becoming a multi-million seller, doing way better than it's ever done on any other platform, and it now bodes well for the future when it comes to variety of games that we're going to see on the Switch 2, or if they make another Metroid game on the Nintendo Switch, but also just what gamers can play, something different. To me, that's super impactful. It's not just about the raw number of sales, it's about what you do and the quality of it. This game was also a Game of the Year nominee as well. So it was nominated, it won Action Game of the Year at the Keeleys and Action Game of the Year at many other places, and even got some Game of the Year nods at some websites. So it was awesome to see this. The impact was huge. Everybody was talking about Metroid Dread. If it will sell 3 million, if it will do this, bets all over the place with some of my friends from the Spawncast and everything. So it was great. That is huge. That is huge for the system itself and for people looking for different types of games to play. So to me, Metroid Dread earned its number 14 spot on the list. Coming in at number 13 is Super Mario Bros. Wonder. This game came out at the end, or more of like the end of the Nintendo Switch's life, but I have it this high for one big reason. It broke us from the curse of 2D Mario with the new series. We've been getting We've been getting that for so long, and finally this game comes, and it looks like it's going to outsell many of the new Super Mario Bros. Games in the long term. It's the fastest selling 2D Mario game of all time in the modern era when it comes to the new Super Mario series and up. It did better than Super Mario Maker 1 and Super Mario Maker 2, with 2 being on the Nintendo Switch, and it continues to be in the top sales charts in most regions, eShop, whatever the case is. It's still up there, it's still selling, and it's going to be a long-term seller. But more importantly, it was a super high quality game, which we hadn't gotten from the 2D Mario series when it comes to the normal 2D Mario series, not Mario Maker. We hadn't gotten anything that was a Game of the Year candidate. That is a 90+ rating, a game that when we see the creativity and everything, it provides that. We've just been getting new Super Mario Bros. Games for the last decade plus or so, and hadn't gotten anything when it comes to normal 2D Mario in about a decade from New Super Mario Bros. U on the Wii U. So it was great to see this. It's impactful. It brings more vibrancy and style and variety to the Switch lineup and to the Mario 2D gaming franchise. So it was huge, and it was a big seller and helped Nintendo do really well, better than they would have done if it didn't have it this late into its life. Super Mario Bros. Wonder's impact cannot be understated, especially when you say, hey, it's the fastest selling 2D Mario game in the modern era. The new Super Mario Bros. Games sell incredibly well, so that is impactful. That's big, but once again breaks us from the hell of the and the new Super Mario Bros. Series. So that's why it's number 13 on my list. Coming in at number 12, Pokemon Legends Arceus. And this game is impactful for a multitude of reasons, but let's start out with a game that's coming out next year, Pokemon Legends ZA. If this game flopped or didn't do well originally on the Switch, I don't think we'd be getting another Pokemon Legends game, but Pokemon Legends Arceus got Game Freak, got Nintendo, the Pokemon company, to try something new, try something different. And at the time that it released in 2022 was a big system seller for it, and to provide a different type of Pokemon experience for people to play. That is hugely impactful, because now the Pokemon companies now have a successful separate type of thing that they used to have before with like Pokemon Stadium and all that, but never had it up to the level in terms of what Pokemon Legends did. Now, yes, is it mainline? Yes, it's mainline. It's not a spin-off per se, but they're still going to do their normal mainline, big battling type of games and all that, like we see with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and Sword and Shield. But this is something different, where I think they're going to make these two in tandem. One's not replacing the other. So that births a new strain of the franchise. And that's incredibly impactful overall to the perception of Pokemon, and also to it being an exclusive on the system for people to pick up a different type of game. Many people feel that Pokemon Legends Arceus is the best Pokemon game in the modern era overall, if you look at what they did from a single player standpoint and from a gameplay innovation standpoint as well. Pokemon Legends Arceus, absolutely one of the most impactful titles. We got another Pokemon Legends game coming out in 2025. It's big time for it, so that's why it makes it to number 12 on my list. Coming in at number 11, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. And this game is impactful, but the impact is a little bit dampened because of the time that it released and the fact that there was another game that we're going to talk about that came out at a bigger time period for the system. Because when Tears of the Kingdom came out, the Switch is a made system at that point. You don't have to prove to crazy people or to others or to the people like to argue about sales that it's going to flop like the Wii U or it's not going to have enough games. So the impact is dulled a little bit from other games that came out before it that sold incredibly well. However, Tears of the Kingdom is still impactful considering what that game did. It showed when it comes to AAA development. Yes, the Switch maybe doesn't have the best graphics, we know that, but a lot can be capable on that system. Considering the type of physics and calculations and everything it did, there were things that that game does that nobody actually felt they could do on the system. The world size, the seamless transitions from the sky to the ground and even to the underground as well, the size of the game itself and what it was able to do with all the mechanics, it was crazy. Nobody felt a game like that was even possible. It took what Breath of the Wild did and expanded it by 3 or 4. Plus it had everything that game has and then some with the Sky Islands and underground. It was massive, and yes, very impactful overall. It sold 20 million units plus as well. So financially, that is a massive impact overall. So The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, with all of its innovative gameplay and style, makes the number 11 on my list. Coming in at number 10 is Minecraft. And Minecraft is one of those games, it's legendary at this point, right? One of the best selling games, if not the best selling game of all time. I know it's up there. And Minecraft is so important. When it came out early in the Nintendo Switch's life, the first year or so, number of months, when it came out, it's so important to get that type of game. That brings in children. That brings in a different type of audience, because Nintendo doesn't make anything like Minecraft at all. There's nothing on the system like Minecraft at the time that it came out. So to have that type of game anywhere that you want with Super Mario Bros. Content as well, with the partnership with Microsoft, that was huge and crazy impactful for the Switch. There'd be months or there'd be times where there isn't necessarily as much, and you would see Minecraft charting still to this day in Japan, charting in the top 10, in the top 20 of sales. Minecraft still charts everywhere for the most part, but the Nintendo Switch version is the best selling version of Minecraft, even more than Microsoft on their own systems. Minecraft sells best on Nintendo Switch. That is crazy, and that is hugely impactful financially for Microsoft in addition to Nintendo because of royalties, and that's just big time. Switch needed a game like Minecraft. It needed that to legitimize it and to make sure that a lot of kids that are into that want to ask their parents for a Nintendo Switch, and that's exactly what happened. You can get Mario, you can get Zelda, you can get Smash Brothers, you can also get Minecraft on the platform. That's a kid's dream overall. Heck, that's an adult's dream for many people out there. So that's why Minecraft makes it number 10 on my list. Next up at number 9 is Monster Hunter Rise. This game's impact was huge because some people even felt this was a Nintendo Switch Pro game. That's how good it looked. But there were many questions back in 2019, 2020, early 2021. Can the Switch even do a major JRPG like this from a third-party studio? Can it run the RE engine? Well, yes, it did it. And it happened. And it's happened multiple times and everything. But Monster Hunter Rise, with how good the game looked, in addition to how it ran solid enough for the Switch, being able to play that anywhere, and the impact that it had in Japan, the massive sales of the system in Japan to bring up the console sales with the Switch, but also overall worldwide to get new people into Monster Hunter because they had the Palamute dogs that looked super cool. They had the wire bug little thing that where you can zip around. The movement was awesome in this game. So it really brought about a lot of new people into Monster Hunter and brought a lot of people that loved Monster Hunter World that didn't have a Nintendo system in order to buy a Nintendo system with a new Monster Hunter game, a brand new one, not a port or a 3DS game brought over or whatever they did before on the Switch, but a brand new title. It was huge for the system, and it was big because you're like, yeah, a lot of these third-party companies are not trying their best. Considering how good Monster Hunter Rise looks on the platform, yeah, you guys can do better. It also showed us that too. So Monster Hunter Rise absolutely deserves the number 9 spot on my list. Coming in at number 8, Splatoon 2. This game was 1000% needed. Remember at the launch of the Nintendo Switch, what we had, it was a bit sparse. Now remember, the first number of months of the Nintendo Switch, there weren't a ton of big games on the platform from third party. So you absolutely need the first party to pick up the slack, but you need something people can play over and over. Some of the games that have came out, yeah, they have good playing time and everything, but you needed something new. You needed something that you can play that was different. And Nintendo's take on the shooter that was popularized on the Wii U blew up to new proportions on the Nintendo Switch. Splatoon 2 was everything Splatoon 1 was, but they added so many cool new features and different things, and that to me helped completely push the Nintendo Switch profile and boost it on top of what they already had, which was big games at the time. But you need that constant hits over and over. Not everybody believes in the system, and if Nintendo can come out and make an online multiplayer shooter that works and people love to play, that can be played over and over and over, that can really help boost the sales throughout the life of the platform until Splatoon 3 came out. So to me, Splatoon 2 did so many positive things because it came out at that time where Nintendo desperately needed a major brand new hit multiplayer game, and they got it with Splatoon 2. Plus all the customization and how good the game was, ended up selling 12 million units plus. It did incredible overall. Splatoon 2 makes it the number 8 on the list. Coming in at number 7 is Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and while this game doesn't have the best technical performance, its impact on the Nintendo Switch and how Game Freak, the Pokemon company, Nintendo go forward with Pokemon games cannot be understated. Sales-wise, it's about to be the second best-selling Pokemon game of all time, and features content-wise, it's one of the most packed. They're going to add a lot of stuff from this game into future Pokemon games. super impactful overall for that. But also, if you look at it, the damage that this game did from a PR standpoint. This is one of your major games. It's bringing in new people. People are playing it, and it didn't do well from a technical performance wise. And it was something that Nintendo actually even had to come out and say, we're sorry for that. And while they did patch up the game when it comes to the bugs and the glitches and all that, didn't get the performance, but they did actually have to come out and say something, which they never do overall for pretty much any of their games. And I feel that this actually caused Nintendo, Game Freak, Pokemon Company to reevaluate everything in terms of the future of Pokemon games, what engines they're going to use, how long they're going to take to make the games. The quality needs to be better because they cannot have another Pokemon Scarlet and Violet disaster with the new Pokemon Legends ZA game. So I think that impact of this game doing what it did when it comes to not being the best overall from a technical perspective impacted everything that the Pokemon Company and Game Freak and Nintendo are going to do going forward in the franchise. So I think that's going to start paying some dividends pretty soon here. But overall, as an impact when it comes to the game itself, the features, what it did, it's huge overall. And even if you look at the time that it came out in 2022, once again, the Switch in the latter half of its life here, but still helped sell a lot of systems that holiday and beyond. So Pokemon Scarlet and Violet makes it the number 7 on my list. Next up at number 6, Pokemon Sword and Shield. And this is the current second best-selling game of all time in the Pokemon franchise, but this game's super important for a number of reasons. At the time that it came out, the Nintendo Switch was still early in its life. It needed that massive hit in 2019. It needed something after Smash Bros. It came out, and 2019 was looking good. We got some titles, there was some big stuff, but they needed that massive hit, and Pokemon Sword and Shield did that. It also helped transition them into the open-ended Pokemon games and a lot of the quality of life features that we enjoy in Pokemon games today at this point, like the PC box anywhere that you want. That's really big overall for the Pokemon games, but the impact that it had on the hardware was immense. Sales skyrocketed in Japan and worldwide for Pokemon Sword and Shield, despite the game necessarily not getting the best reviews out there. Not terrible, not the worst, but not the best. So this game was needed from a console system sales standpoint, from a revenue standpoint, from a future standpoint in terms of what they did with some of the quality of life features. Pokemon Sword and Shield was massive for that, and it brought a lot of people in to the Nintendo Switch ecosystem and kept them there buying other games. Pokemon helped elevate other games selling better in 2019 as well. So that's why Pokemon Sword and Shield makes it the number 6 on my list. All right, guys, we're into the top 5. Let's start out with Animal Crossing New Horizons. In 2020, during the COVID year, Animal Crossing was the game. It sold gangbusters, like 30 million or something crazy in 2020. It was incredible to see. People couldn't go out. People were stuck in their homes, and Animal Crossing was a way for people to connect and come together, just like many other games out there. But for Nintendo fans, this was the game. I played more Animal Crossing New Horizons than any other Animal Crossing game by a large amount, because I'm not really big on Animal Crossing, but this game's impact was huge from a worldwide standpoint. There were people talking about it everywhere. I think there was even like media talking about it outside of the games media, talking about people meeting up in Animal Crossing and having birthday parties and having get-togethers and all talking together and doing all sorts of stuff. It was cool to see, and it was just something at a time that was very difficult for many people. There was a lot of bad things that happened. Animal Crossing New Horizons was really a bright light for that bad time or for that period. So for me, it absolutely was one of the most impactful. Plus, they had the Animal Crossing Switch, which sold like crazy and helped boost sales like crazy as well. Some of Nintendo's best-selling months were in that year that Animal Crossing came out. So we have to have it in our top 5 of most impactful Nintendo Switch games. Coming in at number 4 is Super Mario Odyssey, a game that has so much variety and brought so many more people into the Mario experience. For so many children out there, this was their first ever Mario game. It sold the best. Out of any 3D Mario game, it's by far the best selling one by a good amount. That's why people have been begging for Super Mario Odyssey 2 for quite some time. I don't think they're going to do it because they're going to do a whole different gimmick with Mario for the next one, but it was still massive in that regard. And Super Mario Odyssey, in that first launch number of months, launch year for the Switch, it really helped at the end of the year. Nintendo had heavy hitters at the beginning of the year and a little bit towards the middle, but towards the end, there wasn't really as many different types of games to come out. And Super Mario Odyssey came out and provided a massive spark, huge sales numbers, huge console sales as well, great reviews, game of the year quality type of game, which to me, having a game of the year quality type of game or a game of the year by itself, because Super Mario Odyssey did win some game of the years, I do feel that that is hugely impactful to the perception of the system. The system is more of high quality when you have these type of games, especially from a first party developer in that first number of months when people are still skeptical. People still brought up the Wii U a million times when it comes to, heck, people still bring up the Wii U now, even after 140 million units sold. So I think it's very important to have that quality of game. And it was a complete turnaround from the big 3D Mario game that was first shown for the Nintendo Wii U, where people wasn't as excited. Not the case with Super Mario Odyssey. It helped facilitate the blockbuster sales that the system got, that it really needed to get going. So it was immensely impactful for those reasons, and that's the reason why it's number 4 on my list. Coming in at number 3 is Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. This is one of the best-selling Nintendo Switch games. It's one of the best reviewing Nintendo Switch games. It was a Game of the Year nominee. Some places actually had it as that, and it boosted Sakurai, a legend, already into super legend status with its crossover and everything that it had. It had crazy amounts of characters. There had been nothing like this for a commercial AAA project ever. When it comes to gaming fighting crossovers, it completely destroys most of the games that even tried to do this. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate was a phenomenon. For years, people were waiting on pins and needles in order to see what the next character was going to be in the Fighters Pass. Having characters like Joker, Banjo-Kazooie, Terry, Dragon Quest Hero was just incredible. And to finish it off with Sora from Kingdom Hearts, that was just a magical moment. Kind of annoying how people acted overall, but still a magical time overall, and helped just sell the Nintendo Switch. Still to this point, Super Smash Bros. Is one of the best selling games in most regions for the system. So to me, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate impact was more. There was a cultural impact to it. There's people who don't like Nintendo at all, but just play Super Smash Bros. And bought the system for simply that game. It's that good in terms of what it did and the amount of different characters that it had and the different fan bases of people that probably would never play Smash Brothers but bought a Switch so they can play as Joker or something like that. So Super Smash Bros. Ultimate absolutely crushes it in at number 3 on my list. Coming in at number 2 is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and you guys know we had to have this, and honestly, this could be number 1, this could be super number 1A, it can be number S, it can be the highest of highest, and the reason why I say that is because of the sales. I mean, if you look at it, it's not just all about sales when it comes to impact, but the sales of this game are bonkers. Like, this game is the best-selling game on the Nintendo Switch, easily, 60 million plus. Nobody would have thought that this game would have ever sold that, right? Nobody would have thought that when they were writing articles about it when it comes down to Mario Kart 8, how it could be the worst selling, but it's become the best selling game in the franchise's history and the best selling game on the Nintendo Switch. And it didn't do it all right at once. It did it slowly over time, but very efficiently, like max efficiently, right? You didn't see Mario Kart 8 Deluxe as the top game on MPD and the Japanese sales every single week, every single year since 2017. It slowly became that with the bundles, in addition to people just buying the game. They associated the Switch system with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and that's why it's sold so well. That's why it's done so well and created this massive impact to the point where they actually had to make a ton of DLC for the game, which is done incredibly well and help actually boost their subscription count numbers for Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack, because you get that on there if you already have it. So to me, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was crazy impactful. Nobody felt that it would be that way when it first launched. We're like, okay, yeah, it's going to be impactful, it's going to be good, like it's going to sell well, but is this going to be the best selling game on the Switch? Nobody felt like it was, but it ended up being that, even though it was the best selling game on the Wii U. So people felt, okay, well, people can play it on there, or people already played it on there, but nobody realized the type of impact that it would have overall, because it helped sell systems for years now. It pushed so many units out there, the best selling game. So Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, absolutely, with everything that it did, makes the number 2 on my list, and easily could have been number 1. Heck, probably should be number 1 for many people out there. And coming in at number 1 is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I don't think this was any surprise, and to me, this is the most impactful game. And it's the most impactful game because not only did it inspire a bunch of other developers to do what it tried to do with Breath of the Wild, we have a ton of clones out there, but it helps sell the gimmick of the system of playing that big AAA Nintendo experience that you can't get anywhere else, anywhere that you want. We've had big games before from Nintendo, but we never had anything the size and the quality of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild anywhere that you want. The Switch gimmick of being able to play it on home and on the go was sold almost single-handedly by The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. If it didn't have that game, I think that Nintendo would still be successful, but it wouldn't have been as successful. There would have been a large chunk of people who waited or maybe didn't even pick up the system at all or just said, okay, I'm just going to play something else. This game brought in so many Nintendo fans from yesteryear, fans that maybe have not bought a Nintendo system in decades or maybe didn't like the Wii, didn't like the Wii U, didn't like the 3DS, but said, okay, this is good enough quality. This is for me, plus the scores of the game of the years of the game, the impact that that has. Once again, winning Game of the Year, actually the only Nintendo title for the Keeley Awards at least to win Game of the Year. No other title has in the modern day for Keeley Awards. Been nominations, but not winning it. That carries so much clout and weight and impact, but having that at launch, that's the biggest thing. You need that big system seller. That is the system seller. That is the big title to really push things and get things going and keep it going, because Breath of the Wild was in all the top sales charts for years afterwards. Dropped out when it comes to most of the sales charts, still on the eShop every now and then. Sometimes you'll see it in the Japanese charts at the very end, but it was so impactful and did so much for the Switch to legitimize it from the core gamer standpoint that it has to be #1 on my list. Plus, it's kind of like a super innovative and revolutionary type of game, in my opinion, in terms of what it did with the physics and mechanics. So that was also crazy to see in 2017 and have that as a launch title. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild also sold a remarkable 31.85 million units, being the 4th best-selling game on the Nintendo Switch and actually surpassed many of the previous Zelda games even combined. So it was a revolution when it comes to the sales and impact that it had overall on the popularity of the Zelda franchise. The game at one point sold more than the actual system, which you never see when it comes down to it. But yeah, at one point when it launched in March 2017, there were more copies of Breath of the Wild sold than systems sold, which just goes to show you what people were showing up for. So that's going to wrap it up for my top 25 most impactful Nintendo Switch games. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what your top 25 or most impactful games are on the Nintendo Switch in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch top lists and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.